Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about Ugly Art Day. What is Ugly Art Day? This is a phrase that some coworkers of mine, we came up with about many years ago when I worked at Harlequin Books. So I was an art director there, which meant that I was in charge of creating the covers for a bunch of romance books, those ones that you see in the drugstore. Now back then, they were custom shot. They were not stock art. Nowadays, they are mainly stock photos. But back then, we had the budgets and we had kind of this machine rolling where we would have some covers done in New York and some covers done in Toronto, where our head office was. So I would go to photo shoots that were in Toronto, but in New York, there was a team of illustrators that had been doing the covers forever, a lot of them anyway. And they would hire models, they would get a photo shoot done, and then they would take the shots from that photo shoot, and then they would digitally enhance them. So they would sometimes make them more painterly looking. They would add backgrounds and flowers and put them in a castle or put them on a hilltop or whatever it was. So it was a combination of photography and digital illustration. The ones that I did in Toronto were a little bit more photographic. Fun fact, most of my covers, I shot them in a room that we used to rent at the Gladstone Hotel on Queen Street West. So for many years, I had photo shoots there, and that was amazing. Those were some good days. But the New York ones, I didn't have as much control over in a way because we were outsourcing them. Now, this, again, was a machine that already existed before I got there. There was like the system that I was in where you would have these established illustrators work on them. There was actually a pretty small model talent pool. So if you've ever looked at your romance covers, if you're secretly reading Harlequins, and wonder why you see kind of the same model on a whole bunch of covers, the reason is because there's a small model talent pool. And the same guys and women just kind of keep showing up. There's actually not that many to choose from that kind of fit a lot of the Harlequin descriptors. In fact, we realized that we needed more models, so a bunch of us went to New York and did this big casting call, and that was really cool. So we brought in some new, fresh faces. But back then, for the most part, there was a small talent pool. So how did we get to the Ugly Art Day? So you would, commission these covers, and you would art direct, and you would say, okay, I want it to look like this. I want the lighting to be like this. The models look like this. You would give a description of what, has to happen on the cover. And that is based on what you would get from the author, which is called an author fact sheet, which is where they summarize the story. You're not reading the whole book. That would be impossible. Okay, so you would commission these covers. You'd be like, hey, Steve, I need this cover. And he would be like, no problem. I'm going to get it all shot and done, and I'll send you over the first initial comp. Well, some days you would just get these comps, and they were amazing artists, but everyone has an off day. And I don't know what it was. It would be like something in the water. There'd be this like collective consciousness, I guess, or where everything would just come in to the art department and it would be ugly. I don't know what other word to use. They would just be ugly covers that would come in. And we'd be like, I'd talk to coworkers and they're like, yeah, everything I got in today is just like not really working. Everyone is saying the same thing. And so these would tend to happen not too often, but we would just decide. It was like, okay, this is an ugly art day. This is just one of those days where things come in and they are not working. So you would have to roll with it. You would have to just like make the best of it. You would try and get them reworked. You would make your edits. Sometimes you would go back and forth and it just doesn't come together. And you have to just kind of put the best cover out there that you can. And let me tell you, there are some covers that went out that I look back on now and I'm horrified that they ever went to print. Like how my boss at the time approved them. I guess we were desperate for something to go out, but how she approved them is kind of, she must have been under pressure just to get them out. And so you would just have these days where stuff didn't work. Now, I recently had my own ugly art day, and this is what brought me back to it because I showed some stuff to a client, some design stuff, and it did not land. It did not hit at all. It was kind of dismissed, which is, I think, better than someone just kind of laying into it. It was basically like, no, we have to move in a different direction. This isn't working. So it was very quickly pushed aside, and I had spent hours on it. Now, I didn't take it personally, and I could understand what they were saying, and we did move in a different direction, and it's kind of got back on track, and it's fine. But I was like, okay, I am having an ugly art day. I am having a day where I'm not landing with my work, that it is not being well received, and it doesn't look good. So this is not gonna fly. And maybe that's because I was tired. Maybe it's because I overworked. Maybe because I wasn't really listening to what the client said or didn't interpret it properly. But either way, everyone at some point is going to have an ugly art day. Again, doesn't matter if you don't create art. Whatever you are creating, there are some days where it is not going to land. And everyone can say this, and everyone can be like, yeah, I know what that's like. But do you really give yourself grace when this happens? Do you let yourself just accept without punishing yourself and berating yourself that this happened? It's like you just miss the mark sometimes. And when I would have to go back to the illustrators, and say, hey, Steve, this doesn't really work. We have to change a few things. They were always great about it because they probably knew it wasn't working either. Now, 90% of the time, I know when something's not working, but every once in a blue moon, I was like, oh, I didn't see it that way. And it's really personal how people are going to interpret what you do. And so I think it's really helpful, especially if you are a recovering perfectionist. So I feel like I was very much in the perfectionism world, but I would say out of all the shit that I'm going to move through, that was the one I probably gave up first because it is so exhausting being a perfectionist. I don't think I had much of a choice. There was no energy left over for me to keep doing things over and over again. That's why when I have creative people that I work with, and let's say they're stalling on getting their portfolio out, I will push them to just done is better than perfect because that's some place where they really get stuck. They spin their wheels, and you are going to drive yourself crazy and you are going to exhaust yourself, and it's actually not going to be worth it because most of the time, no one else is seeing the tiny issues that you see. And if they are seeing them, it's possible that it's not as big a deal to them, or it's not a deal breaker to them. It's like, I don't think that one tiny error or something slightly off in your design portfolio, for example, is going to stop you from getting a job or going into a certain agency that you want or landing the client. I just don't see it as black and white as that. Maybe that's because I want to give myself grace and I want to believe this, but that's my interpretation. Even when I used to interview people and have to look through their portfolios and hire illustrators, I didn't expect that 100% of the time it would be 100% perfect, or that every single thing in their portfolio I was going to love, or whatever they did was going to be amazing. There's sometimes things that don't land. In fact, I can remember quite a few interviews where I have had people say, like the art director who was interviewing me, I don't like this piece that you did, or these look dated to me. I've had that a couple times, or this is this. They don't like it. But did it mean I didn't get the job? No. Just meant that some of my stuff wasn't for them and some of it was. So giving yourself a little bit of grace is really helpful. So when I just had this ugly art day last week, it was a great reminder that I'm not always going to be good at what I do. And even stuff that I do now, and you would think with all this experience that I would never mess up, that I would never screw up, that I would never have an ugly art day. It's impossible to not have an ugly art day because there's so many factors. And I know I was tired last week, and I know I was kind of pushing myself on a bunch of things, and I missed the mark. And some of these illustrators that I worked with, they would do that. And do I think any less of any of those people? Those talented illustrators that I loved working with. They were so much fun to work with. Did I ever think less of them? No. It would just be a moment of frustration that, okay, we might get behind on the deadline. I got to get this out. We did such a huge volume and quantity of work. But I never changed my perspective on their competence unless it was something that happened over and over and over again. And there was one illustrator that we worked with that really went through a difficult time, and they were consistently turning in work that was subpar. It just wasn't working. And so unfortunately, over time, we didn't end up working with that illustrator. But that's an outlier situation. Most of the time, we're showing up and we're doing a good job. Most of the time, we're knocking it out of the park, especially if you're a high achiever, high performer, you're like doing amazing. But there is going to be that one time here and there where it's not going to land. And so how do you recover from that? And I had a very interesting conversation with a friend who went through something, and then she's a coach, and realized that she was kind of spinning out for a lot longer than she had to about this experience. It was going on for a few weeks. And so we talked it through. And she's like, I got to learn to recover faster. So she goes down the rabbit hole, finds some amazing videos on YouTube that kind of help you get through it. And I was thinking about this and I was like, yeah, this is so key. Like if you have an ugly art day, how fast are you going to recover from it? How long are you going to let it bring you down? Like when I presented my ugly art last week, I don't think it really derailed me for more than a couple minutes. Like I was in a meeting, I was like, okay, this is like more work for me. I've got to basically start from scratch. But then I just moved on because partly experience, partly I don't take it personally, but that's how I'm actually going to get to where I need to go. And that's how I'm going to make the client happy. And that's what's best in this situation. Now, that was a really small example. Some things are really big and we tend to spin out, or it's, like if you don't get the job, your dream job, and you worked really hard for it, you're going to take longer to recover. You're going to have a pity party. If you're anything like me, I try and keep them to 24 hours. That's my general rule, but I go for it. I let myself be upset. But how fast do you really want to cover? Like, how long do you want to let it drag you down? And it's going back to that, like, just a piece of remembering that we are all going to do ugly art. We are all going to do things that don't work well. Are we going to let it dictate how we think of ourselves and our self-worth? I'm going to say no on that one. I'm going to say a hard no. It has to just be a blip. It's just something that happened, and I refuse to let it really drag me down and pull me under. Especially as a creative, we really want to just knock things out of the park and make them stellar, like all the time. And I think the longer you're in a creative career, the more you think you should be amazing at things all the time. That it should be consistently perfect, or at least consistently awesome, right? But that's not always the case. And I'm just really in the space of giving myself more grace. Not everything we can create is going to be this incredible work of art. It just can't be. I recently just read 2 books or listened to 2 audiobooks from 2 of my favorite mainstream popular authors. And both of them, I couldn't even I got through one of them, but the other one I just couldn't even get through. I really didn't like them. Like I just did not like them. I didn't think they were working. There were so many things that I just didn't like about them. Do you think I'm going to not buy their books again or try it again? I just see it as like, okay, that one wasn't for me. I'm moving on. I don't think any less of the author. Maybe a little bit frustrating because you had high hopes and you're a little bit disappointed. But I never mind giving grace to yourself, especially as a creative, but giving it to others who just maybe miss the mark. And again, that was just not for me. Millions of other people think it's great, and that's fine. But there is just this ebb and flow. There's a give and a take. There's failure and success. And everything has to commingle together. And you have to get comfortable with letting it commingle together, and that you can't just be swimming in a pool of success. Like I know I call myself a success coach because I want to have as much success as possible. And part of the reason why I like calling myself a success coach is because I kind of avoided success for so long, or stepping into, a bigger piece of this world. And I want to help others do that, just like really step into their version of success. It's different for everybody else. But we need to kind of realize that the success only comes with the ugly art days. Like there's the beautiful days, and then there's the awful, yucky days. And especially when it comes to creation, I just want to give the message that we need to give each other a little bit of grace, give ourselves the grace, and recognize that it's going to happen. And when it does, just acknowledge it for what it is. Like, I literally be like, okay, well, that was an ugly art day. Let's try this again tomorrow. Let's make that a little bit better. And let's try not make it ugly. Like, let's just give that a shot. But the truth is, I'm going to have some more. You're going to have some more. We're all going to have some more. And it's going to be okay. I think it's going to be okay. You will still have your job. I will still have my job. We will continue. We will soldier on. And we'll just try and make some nice, pretty things and be kind to ourselves. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.